I've honestly tried to sit down and make this video so many times. I keep getting so frustrated. I haven't been this annoyed and wound up after on the back of a Chelsea fixture in ages. It's got to be like this time last season, because results started to change January, February this time last year. Maybe that Arsenal game was diabolical last year. It was bad under Poch last year, and I kind of felt like Poch was a lot of the reason for that at times. I'm really starting to feel like it wasn't just him. Like, there is so much going wrong at this club right now that it can't solely be based on a manager or poor players. I think a lot of it comes down to the sporting directors, the ownership. There's so many issues at Chelsea right now that I think kind of got put to the side a little bit and swept under the covers when we were winning games. You know, it papered over cracks by winning those games, because ultimately, as a Chelsea fan, I just want to see Chelsea winning and being successful again. And do you know what? I can understand that this new ownership might want to go about things in a different way. I completely get that. They're not Roman. They're not going to act like Roman. They don't want to be associated to how Roman did things. I get that. Don't forget you're buying his club, though, and people have expectations when a club's been run in that way, and people aren't going to be happy if you change things up too much. Look, I think Chelsea fans could have accepted going round the houses in a completely different approach, the long way round, if it got us to the same destination. But right now, off the back of where we are currently as a club and where this team is sat in the Premier League, and with this feeling of contentment around mediocrity ringing through this team and the dressing room, the managers and the sporting directors and the owners, and some of even the fan base are starting to fall for it now. I can't accept it. I can't accept Chelsea being a mediocre club, a club that are happy to replicate a team like Bournemouth, a club that are happy to have their manager speaking out, suggesting they're not in a title race when they are sat second in the Premier League, and on points actually be there competitively. I'm not happy with a club accepting that it can finish 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and that be okay when the club is the size of Chelsea and has spent over £1 billion on the current squad. I'm not happy with a manager coming out and continuously backing players that are such a low standard compared to what should be playing for Chelsea Football Club. I'm not happy with Chelsea hiring 3, 4, 5 different managers under this new ownership and all of them not being good enough, and sacking the last great manager Chelsea had in Thomas Tuchel and thinking that was okay because they didn't align. Now I can see why, because Thomas Tuchel is the only manager that has left Chelsea and gone on to better since this new ownership came in. He went to manage Bayern Munich and now he's got the England job. Any other manager has left Chelsea to go to something inferior, in my opinion, and pretty much factually that is true as well. It's diabolical the way this club's being run. And for a period of time this season, I felt like I've been fair. I felt like, do you know what? I'll give them the opportunity to prove me wrong. Maybe I'm being too stubborn. Maybe I feel like I'm too attached to the old Chelsea Football Club under Roman, how it was that we had very, very high standards. We were the best in class, best of the best. It was about winning at all costs, signing the very best players. Yes, there was a business approach too, because we had the loan model and players were being farmed out on loan and we generate money that way, and sometimes those players become good enough. But there was a reason players like Mohamed Salah and Kevin De Bruyne couldn't break into that Chelsea team, because the Chelsea team was that good. They had to go elsewhere to get to that level to then go and prove themselves around the Premier League and Europe. Because that's how difficult it was. I now see players that couldn't tie those players' boots, right? And they are getting paid millions of pounds a year. They're being paid £1 million in terms of transfer fees for these players to join the club. And they've done nothing. They haven't earned their way to play for Chelsea Football Club. It's the same with a manager. Maresca, all he's won is the championship with the best team. And at a time, he found that difficult to do by dropping so many points. But we gave them a chance because We felt like they might do things a little bit differently, but, we might eventually see this Chelsea team moving in the right direction. I'm not seeing it. And you know what makes it even worse is that Maresca come out and said that 2 months ago, 1 month ago, we're better than that now. And I think what he means is that off the back of the mistakes that have been made, this team will learn, and he might learn, and the club might be in a better position. That's not how it works at Chelsea. Chelsea, you don't get that time if you're the manager of Chelsea or you're playing for Chelsea. You get moved on. And what baffles me is that some players have been moved on who have been deemed not good enough. Players like João Felix who don't fit the system. Players like Dazassi are getting moved on because they don't fit the system. Players like Dewsbury Hall is potentially up for sale, but now because we're short in his area, we probably need to keep him throughout January now, and it'll probably be more likely the summer that he moves on. But players are being allowed to leave Chelsea if they're deemed not good enough. But I don't understand that because I feel like the standards are falling. So not good enough for what? Because they probably are mid-table level players that we're allowing to leave. I cannot get my head around Chelsea's squad building. I don't think it makes any sense. I think we've spent hundreds of millions of pounds on some players that are potentially meant to be the spine of this new era, and they're nowhere near good enough. We've wasted at least $1 billion on players that are not good enough for Chelsea, and players that I genuinely believe we might never make profit on as well in terms of transaction amount, in terms of fee. Maybe on the books we'll make profit because we're running loopholes for fun. But when it comes to buying a player for 50 million, like João Felix, and selling him on, are we going to get 50 million? I'm not sure. Dewsbury Hall, 35. Are we going to get that again? I'm not sure that we are. 110 million for Enzo Fernandez. We're not getting that. The same goes for Caicedo probably, even though he's probably one of the very few that has probably put the price tag argument to bed. Pedro Neto's 60 million. Another player who no one really knows if he's going to perform and be up to the level at Chelsea. Because right now his output, it's very, very poor for a £60 million player. Look, Chelsea's in a really odd place right now. And the fact that all of this is going on whilst the January transfer window is open, and there's such a lack of noise and direction from Chelsea to go and get this solved. When you look across at Manchester City, who are behind us, spending the money they have on the talent that they have, a player like Omar Marmoush to come in, who looks like exactly what this team needed in City, a spark, fix the problems, bring in 2 centre-backs that will be eventually good enough to play for Manchester City, even if they've come in with a little bit of a blip. But I just believe that a proactive approach like they've done is exactly what is required at Chelsea right now. And the fact it isn't happening shows me there is contentment around where this team is right now. And I'll sit here and tell you right now, if the window closes and nothing happens, and the obvious glaring holes and lack of quality in this team is not addressed, I don't think Chelsea Football Club will be in the top 5 of the Premier League by the end of the season. Because I think there are better teams and there are hungrier outfits that want to be there. They want to fight to be there. And because of what Maresca said, which is a message that I'm certain that's been passed through about not being in a title race and being happy that we could finish between 4th and 7th, that basically shows the mentality that is running through this squad right now, that they'd accept losing the odd game here and there because they're ahead of schedule. What is going on at Chelsea Football Club? I've said it before and I'll say it again. I genuinely believe the owners bought the wrong club. The best owner in world football had this club ripped away from him. And according to John Owen Mikel, he's still very, very hurt by that. And I'll tell you what, I can see why. He must hate how his club is being run now. He must hate it. He ensured that money had to be put back into this club over a 10-year period. They've done it in 1.5, 2 years, pretty much that amount of money. And look at what they've done with it. They've absolutely wasted that amount of money. They've sold off the women's team. They've sold off money when it comes to the hotels, to their own group, that they are now owners of land on Chelsea's very own stadium. It is absolutely crazy. There are so many different issues that go all the way through. The amount of turnover in terms of staff that have left this club, from the very, very best staff to the staff that are there in, a pretty low-end job that isn't that essential to the football club in terms of what it offers on the pitch. But the day-to-day running is so key. We're talking about ground staff, dinner ladies, head scouts, head of academies, managers, physios, you name it. The guts of Chelsea Football Club that was built under Roman has been obliterated. And you can all sit here and say, oh, Dan, you're so negative, blah, 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 blah. No, I'm not. Because when the going is good, I'm positive and I can buy into what we're trying to do. And I've done that at times this season. But right now, there's no wins. The squad is unbelievably poor, in my opinion, for the amount of money that's been spent on it. There are still far too many issues. I think we've got sporting directors that absolutely don't have a clue with what they're trying to do. We've got owners who have no idea of how a top football club should be run. We've got owners that are copying models of teams that are in League Two not that long ago in Brighton. We've got an obsession with signing players young enough to be in our youth team. We've got an obsession with trying to make profit on every single player that the fans have now absolutely turned, in some cases, to the point that it's successful if a transfer comes in, makes no effort or effect, or might never even represent Chelsea on the pitch, but we make profit on him. It's seen as a good piece of recruitment. I do not care about the business side unless it helps us win on the pitch. If it is going to line people's pockets that I will never speak to and never meet in my life, I quite honestly couldn't care. And that is where, as a fan base, we're absolutely deluded now. And these owners are thriving off the case that some fans are publicly speaking out with hundreds of thousands of followers on social media, saying, oh, isn't it great we made £5 million profit on a player who never played for us, that went on loan to Strasbourg, and now he's playing in like UAE or, Saudi Arabia or something like that, because they were willing to pay more money than what we bought him for. That is absolutely delusional. Angelo, I'm talking about that signing. Andre Santos, probably another one that will fall into that category. A player who looks to be very, very capable in European football, might never play for Chelsea. I'm not sure. He might get recalled, but there are a number of players. Even Renato Vega at the club comes in, gets farmed out on loan after a few performances. Players that actually cared and players that have actually won something at Chelsea have been banished, and now we've had to go and crawl back to them and say, oh, we're sorry, can you come back, because our recruitment and squad building has been so poor that we've had to recall you back. Players like Ben Chilwell, not even given a sniff at minutes this season. This guy's won the Champions League. He's won more than the manager. But they don't want to even entertain the possibility of him playing. Players like Reece James, under this manager, are being played as an inverted fullback when he's arguably one of the best in world football at being an out-and-out fullback, attacking wing-back, you name it. You are hindering some of our best talent for a stupid systematic approach that's only ever just won the championship and got you relegated at Parma. What is going on at this club? There is so many issues. But it has to start from the very top. The owners need to be aware that this isn't how it works at Chelsea Football Club. And as a fan base, we have to be so vocal and we have to be loud. Because if we're not, they're just going to keep going this way. But we've used our voices before and we'll make them heard again. I guarantee it. But this is where, as a fan base, we don't get torn. We hold our standards high and we make sure that Chelsea Football Club are a team that are back on the trajectory to be winning football matches and buying and recruiting players that are good enough to win you titles, trophies, break records, because that is where this club should be. Do not accept mediocrity. Make your voices heard, platform or not. Spread the word that Chelsea have standards and we do not let them drop, especially for people that at the end of the day do not care about this club and where it is at, and are happy to accept mediocrity to line their own pockets. That just isn't how it's going to work at Chelsea Football Club. I don't recognise this club anymore, and the fact I have to sit here and say that is absolutely ridiculous. And I'll be honest, even if we do finish in a position where we're sat there and we're getting Champions League places, it's going to continue to paper up the cracks. People will say, oh, don't go to the games and protest with your feet. You can't do that because unfortunately, and it probably is, a good percentage of Stamford Bridge is filled up every single week with people that really don't care whether Chelsea win one game to the next, because there is a huge amount of tourism that the owners are thriving for more when it comes to match days at Stamford Bridge. There is a reason the atmosphere has gone, because it's been sucked out of Chelsea Football Club. There are £5,000 tickets behind the dugout. There is a whole part of the West Stand that has been made corporate for people that go for after-work drinks to then watch the football that's on in the evenings, or, you know, on a Saturday afternoon or something like that. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I understand clubs are doing it in the Premier, and I get that football will move in that direction, but there has to be a level where the club moves like that, but requirements are being met on the pitch in terms of the standards of this club being achieved and maintained, winning. Things have to change, and we will learn a lot about where these owners are at in this last week of January, because it's got to the point now where it's not about good value for money. It's about maintaining what it is to be Chelsea Football Club. And if we see nothing and we just see players moved on for potential profit and it carries on in the same way, it'll speak way more words than what anyone making YouTube videos or tweeting can ever do. It'll tell you everything you need to know. Look, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. We're going to be busy this week, obviously, talking about Chelsea, the transfer market, where we are as a club, what the season looks like going forwards, where we're at with the manager. I've really, really, really tried to just be honest and open with this club in terms of what they are trying to do. Be open-minded. Sell me a different approach to football, and I'll see if I can buy into it this season, because I know I didn't last year. Guess what? Here we are again. I'll see you all in a bit, guys. Drop a like if you think Chelsea need to make a change from the very, very top. I'll see you all in the next one.